Welcome to our present state versus history on Speaker. Here we are focused on the current events of our culture through the principles of our history, trying to make sense of the culture and the mindset of today. I am your host, Ray Mayfield. Well, okay, folks, here we are back on the pod. I realize it's been a while since I've recorded any new episodes, but I just had to kind of take a break, step back a little bit, and clear my head. Found myself getting baited into a lot of these conversations on multimedia platforms, we'll call them, that were basically what these, I don't know how to even put it, these people that want to destroy this country. They want to create a socialistic type society. They have certain talking points. They have certain subject matters that they're trying to get us all distracted on and keep us focused on. And that's what is fueling a lot of this division that's going on in this country right now. Find myself being baited into some of that, and I had to kind of clear my head a little bit because, the purpose we started this podcast, I don't want to be part of the noise out there that's just rattling this rhetoric that's going on. A few weeks ago, they went through the Trump trials, and made the verdict known and all that. And I was listening to some of these conservative talk radio shows and their solution, some of the things they were talking about was, well, we need to do the Democrats the same way and be dragging them into the court systems, and we need to be filing these charges against these people. And don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I think anybody that violates the law needs to go through the due process of law, but the whole inflating fines and making up degrees of criminal activity of things that is just ridiculous. And that is the problem. We do not need the Democrats or the Republicans using the court system for their political pandering. See, this is the problem. And regardless of what you think about President Trump, I wish that sometimes you could just erase the names of these people and be listening to the philosophies that's coming from the things that are being said. And, I never was one of those, running around, we got to just support President Trump. And I never was one of them that was a never Trumper. I did vote for him. Probably going to vote for him again just because of the whole situation that's went on. But that's nevertheless, the point is, I was listening to an interview, and I kind of have a newfounded respect, I guess, for the man that I've never had before, because listening to this interview that they did with after these verdicts, he was just asked point blank, are you going to retaliate against your enemies? And his answer in that was he had every right to, and he was going to have basically the means to, but he probably wouldn't because it needed to stop. And if this pandering back and forth didn't stop, that we weren't going to have a republic to defend. And the man's absolutely right. He's paid a price very similar to what our founding fathers paid in the forging of the documents that we're supposed to be upholding. And regardless of your party affiliation, if we were doing things according to the original integrity of our Constitution and the establishing of our due process in the political system, we would not have a two-party system. People talk about, we need a third-party system. We need it. No, we don't need any party system. We need to go back to doing things according to the integrity that they were set up in our original documents. And if we would follow those things, it would solve a lot of these problems. If we would elect a president through the pure form of the Electoral College that was intended for it to be, we would not have any of this nonsense going on in our country. But you're going to have to deal with people saying, oh, well, you're going to, I have the right to vote and I have the right to this. And well, the reality of it is we do not have a democratic government. We have a republic. We have a democratically elected republic. And there are only certain aspects of a republic where the populace actually vote. Does that mean they don't have a voice? No. They are in control. We, the people, are in control. But the way that we are in control is through a balanced system of law and order. And this is the point. And this is why we started this podcast, because I'm trying to get the majority of the people out here to stop looking at the pandering and the badgering and the rhetoric that's going on, and start thinking for themselves and look at the situation at face value for what it is. We have a school system all the way from kindergarten to the highest PhD level college graduates that has been corrupt and taken over, and the absolute bias that has been spun into those fields of education are purposely twisting people to hate capitalism. Capitalism is not our problem. Free enterprise is not our problem. Is there corruption within that? Oh yeah, there always will be. Any place there's money, you're going to have to deal with the vices of the nature of sin that's within mankind. Man wants power and control. That is one of the negative attributes of the free moral agent and the free will of man. We have to deal with that. The founding fathers understood that, and that's the reason why they created documents that we call our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, and put things in motion to protect it. We also have a teaching going on out here that has become the main thought process in this younger generation, and that is that the role of government is to take care of its citizens. That is not the role of government. The role of government is to establish freedom under a law or under law. In other words, an order of law and order in a society, and establishes us to live free. See, the only way we can live free is to have a harmony in our society, and our harmony is maintained through law and order. The founding fathers knew that. I'm going to read you a few things out of a textbook that you're not going to find in the school systems today. One little textbook's called The View of Human Nature of the Founders. It says here that the founders were optimistic as well as realistic about the human nature. They realized that all human beings are mixed of sunshine and shadow. The sunshine consists of the see if I can pronounce it right, perfectibility of human reason, and of human nature, the imperfectibility of human passion and humans' faulty sense of judgment, and which makes government necessary. James Madison stated that there is a degree of depravity in humankind which requires a certain degree of skepticism, if I can get it pronounced right, and distrust. So there are other qualities in the human nature which justify certain portions of esteem and confidence. So it's simple what he's saying there. He's saying there's certain parts of our human nature we should be skeptical of and not trust, and then there's certain parts of it that are honorable and we should have confidence in. But we have to protect against the negative aspects of those things. Another place in some of the things it says where they were dealing with the Constitution, it says several of those who had the honor of being called American founders and who spent their lives and fortunes hammering out particular aspects of a system of freedom under law called the final version of the United States Constitution a miracle. In a letter to the Marquis de Lafayette on February 7th of 1788, George Washington wrote, "It appears to me, then, little sort of a miracle that the delegates of each in their manner, circumstances, and prejudices should unite in the forming of a system of national government." He was dealing with the states coming together is what he was saying. And James Madison wrote to Thomas Jefferson in France in December 9th of 1787, saying it was impossible to consider the degree of concord which ultimately prevailed as less than a miracle. And what these guys were talking about in the contents of these letters and these conversations took place is how much diversity and difference there was in each of the states, and how much difference and diversity within each state, but yet it all came together with a unified document structured to protect and maintain a level of law that man could live free for. You see, it is our individual responsibilities to provide for ourselves. What our government does is it protects the system that allows us to operate within that system to provide and get wealth. The Bible says that it's God that gives us the power to get wealth. It's not the government. You see, but it's necessary for man to create governments in order to maintain peace and harmony within the society, so that individuals are able to operate within that society in order to amass wealth and provide for their families. Because, you know, wealth is a lot more than just money. This is the thing. We've come down in our society here in this United States of America especially, and we want to attribute wealth to how many cars we got, how big a house we got, how much money we got in the bank. And that's not necessarily wealth. Yeah, it's a form of wealth, but it's not the wealth of a man's life. Our republic system is also not the problem. Capitalism's not the problem. Free enterprise is not the problem. And our republic system is not the problem. In fact, it was set up to safeguard against the corruption that we have allowed into our political system, because we have taken down those guidelines, or those walls of barriers, if you will, those protections that those founding fathers that they were talking about forging out in this history book to protect from these corruptions. We've taken these things down. That 1900 generation, you know, it started with Mr. Taft. If you remember back the presidency of Mr. Taft, he's one that introduced the income tax. We started taxing income. There was no tax on income up until then. We got Woodrow Wilson, who come into office 1913 to 1921, you know, and he got us all involved in the League of Nations and got us into this alliance with these nations, which our founding fathers said was a mistake. Does that mean that we don't trade with them, that we don't work out, financial abilities to trade and to govern? No, we can do that without having war pacts. We can do that without having these United Nations authorities over the sovereignty of countries. See, this is where the problem is. Mr. Woodrow Wilson, you know, if you'll go back and read your history books, you'll find that the Prohibition Amendment to the Constitution that didn't work out too well and had to be appealed was ratified during his presidency, because his idea was, you know, this office of the president was this administrative state that was going to control and administrate. It'd be the minister or administrate, well, if I could get it out, administer of all the other states. See, these are when the philosophies of this big federal government started taking hold into our history, and where the changes to our Constitution came in. I've barked this multiple times on these podcasts that we need to unfreeze the state representatives, and this is all took place. These presidents here were the beginnings. They moved forward, and these Democratic presidents, they used things like World War I and World War II and the Great Depression in order to seize more power, in order to seize more control of the people, in order to gather up more money. And so we have the 17th Amendment that would come into place there. We have the freezing of our state representatives there. And poor Mr. Thomas Jefferson, we just talked about a little while ago, he was trying to maintain some kind of order and control over the Supreme Courts because he was afraid they would be the catalyst that dissolved the separation of powers that they set up in our original Constitution. And he was exactly right. So we need to ratify the Jefferson Amendment. We need to get some checks and balances over our Supreme Court system, and we need to get them out of politics. We need to get back to the state's house being the state's house, and those senators being appointed by the representatives that are elected by the people. And a number of representatives needs to go back to a slide as to population like it was originally intended to be, so that the people have proper representation. And those things alone will bring things back into a place of order and protection. People running around now that, the schools has taught everybody that capitalism is evil, and it's these rich billionaires that are controlling our government, and they're passing all these laws and nobody can win, so we have to do away with capitalism. I do not disagree with them that we have too many money people involved in our politics. We have too many of these rich billionaires like George Soros, who has bought almost all of the national news networks. And so all of the news that is coming across the broadcasts that most people are watching is tainted by his control and his bias. And that right there is a dangerous thing. There are billionaires influencing our senators who are making laws because they're being voted on, and that stuff needs to stop. I don't disagree with that. But capitalism is not the reason why we have those problems. The reason why we have those problems is because our state senators are being elected, and they're going through the public election process instead of being appointed to their positions, which is exactly what the founding fathers said we would have if we did not appoint those people to the term of office and then revisit their appointment every so often, which in those cases it's 6 years, rotating on the 2/3 majority. And then we would have the people's voice being heard in the Senate, because if the senators aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, their appointment would be pulled and they would be removed from office, and a new appointment would take place. And if they were doing a good job, their appointment would be renewed and they would continue on as need be. So this right there is what has allowed that corruption in. We have the lack of representation of the people. So we've got, on average, we have like 165,000 individuals being represented by a state representative. And that's just ridiculous. You don't have any access to those people. You can't talk to them. You have to go out of your way in order to be able to communicate with them. And they are more interested in the special interest groups and the pressures coming in their immediate surroundings than they are dealing with the general public out here, because they know they don't have access to them. So you don't have that constant influence to your representative, who is the one looking over what those folks are doing to maintain the sovereignty of the states. And so we have all of this going on. We now have using these court systems in our political pandering. which is exactly what Thomas Jefferson was trying to avoid. All of this that went on with Trump is nonsense. It's all political motivated. None of it needs to be in the courtroom. We have our federal Supreme Court, which is supposed to be dealing with matters of the federal level, not state level stuff. We have them being completely flooded with cases from the states that the states' individual Supreme Courts are supposed to be dealing with, because the federal Supreme Court is not supposed to be superior to the state Supreme Court. They're supposed to be on equal footing. There's no greater authority with the federal Supreme Court than the state Supreme Court. The federal Supreme Court is supposed to be dealing with matters of the federal level within the deeds and the affairs of the federal government, which are only involved in the powers of the things that we have given them to do, which is supposed to be foreign treaties, foreign protection, so on and so forth. Things like abortion, health care, and many, many, many other things should be being dealt with in each state by each level of courts in the Supreme Court of each state, and each state is sovereign to make its own laws dealing with social matters concerning the people of that state. And if the state's house had been restored to deal with the matters of the state, then the Senate is there to protect the states from the federal government passing laws that overreach its authority and takes over jurisdiction within the individual states. Now, are there certain things that we have to have a federal oversight over for all of our states because we're connected and directed? Absolutely. But they are few and far between. Most things that these states deal with are state issues. I could care less what the people in the state of Alabama, for instance, are doing in their medical deals and their personal life things, and when I'm living in Missouri. Now, if Missouri starts passing laws that I don't like and I think that it's being unfair, then you know what? I can get on my little Google search and I can check out the other states of the union and I can say, well, what's this state doing? And if they're doing something that I think is a little better, then guess what? Because I'm in the United States of America and I can travel without being harassed of my papers according to the Bill of Rights, then I can pack my little tent and I can move down to Alabama and say, you know what? I like your laws down here a lot better. I think I'm going to be a citizen of Alabama. And if a state becomes oppressive and they become absolutely contradicting the will of the people, guess what the population of that state is going to do over time? It's going to migrate somewhere else. We're seeing it happen right now in our very current history with the states around. I don't have to mention their names. Anybody that's listening to this probably been around long enough to know which states are having a mass migrant of people leaving. Businesses are leaving, individuals are leaving. Other states, they're having a mass influx of people coming in. Why is that? Because people do not want to be oppressed. And the laws of our land are supposed to be protecting the minority from being oppressed by the majority. See, a true democracy completely through and through, which is what the socialists want us to have, is mob rule. Mob rule is not beneficial to the minority. Our republic protects the minority while yet it listens to the majority and gives the people the voice to pass laws to keep order so that they might live a free life. What is it that our Constitution says? It says we have the right to pursue, is the language it's using, happiness and welfare of our life. See, now I don't know where the rest of you are at, but as far as having huge amounts of money, having all these great big empires with my name on them like Mr. Donald Trump has done, hey, if that's what he wants to do, I'm all happy for him. You know what? That ain't my thing. I don't care if they ever build a building with my name on it. I don't care if I ever have some national renown whatever. I can sit right back on my back porch, put my feet up, drink my coffee in the morning, listen to them squirrels run up and down them trees and watch them rabbits running around out in the back. And I got enough money to pay my bills, and that night time comes along, I'm going to fry me a big old T-bone steak and have me a good old baked potato. That's heaven for me, folks. It don't take much to make me happy. But if I'm staying on my side of my real estate and I'm having my happy day, that's my idea of heaven. And this country protects me to do that. And if Mr. Donald Trump wants to go out and build real estate empires and have big towers with his names on them and have multi-billions of dollars in the bank, and that's his idea of heaven, what's wrong with that? There is no equality of wealth or statue of society in the United States. We have no social classes. There is no middle class. There is no upper class. There is no lower class. There is free enterprise. Each one of us has the freedom to do as we will, to desire the wealth or the life we want. If the job that I'm working, if I'm working a job is not paying me enough money to make me happy to meet the goals that I want, then you know what? I can either go find another job, or I can start a business on my own while I'm working that job, or I can do all kinds of different things in order to change the situation I'm in. And nobody's going to tell me I can't do it. That's the freedom of the United States of America. That comes with a price. It's a price called responsibility, which most of these people that I hear complaining because the government's not doing for them, they're complaining because these rich capitalists are taking advantage of everybody, they're not willing to do what it takes to get out of the place where they are. They talk about the equality of wealth in this country. Well, I want you to go to any country in the world and see if they've created even a fraction of the overall wealth that's been created in this country of the United States. Anybody who is in a position in this country, in the United States of America, that is not moving forward to be able to better themselves is nobody to blame but themselves. You can do anything your heart sets your desires to in this country, and you can make money at it if you work the system lawfully and equally. And they say, oh, it's all the corruption. Is there corruption out there? Oh, yeah, there is. You're always going to deal with the dark side of humanity. There's going to be people that want power. They want to put their thumb down on you. You know what? You let the free enterprise system work and you get the government out of it, because the government has restrained so much of it. That's why they hated Donald Trump, because most people have forgotten when Donald Trump took office, he's a businessman. He unloosed this machine. And this American economy and this machine was taken off like nobody had ever expected it to. In fact, it was going so much better than they thought it would. The Democrats went into a frenzy on figuring out how to stop it. And guess what we got? COVID. Shut everybody down. Isolate everybody. Don't let them travel from state to state. Make them stay home. We got Woodrow Wilson's plan being put in place as his form of government. We got the administrative state telling everybody how they can live, where they can go, what they can do, who's essential, who's non-essential, who can move where they want to move, who can't move where they shouldn't move. It is insanity. This country's built on freedom. If I don't want to take a vaccine, I have every right not to take a vaccine. If I want a vaccine, by all means, go down there and get a vaccine. That's America. Oh, well, if I don't get vaccinated, then you're violating my right. How's that? You got vaccinated, you're protected. If somebody's not vaccinated, they're taking a chance they're probably going to die, okay, if that's their choice. Personally, I have faith in my Lord Jesus Christ. He's created these bodies to heal themselves. And you know what? And that old COVID thing all started going around. I think I had that COVID thing like 6 or 8 months before they even mentioned the very first thing, because I was sick as a dog with all the symptoms they talked about. You know what? This old body recovered just fine. I was up flipping around. And then we went through that whole COVID thing for 2 years, and I never got so much as a sniffles. Well, you say, well, that's you. Well, yep, that's me. And I have the right to make the decision what's best for me on that situation. And no government bureaucrat's going to come down and say, well, I don't like what you're doing. You're going to do it different. That's America. That's the right to pursue happiness. That's the right for me to walk in the place I want to walk. as I see fit. That's my freedom of expression, my freedom of religious viewpoint, whatever you want to call it. That's my freedom to move freely. That's America. We have all kinds of things that are wrong in this country that need to be fixed. Yes, they do. And most of them can be restored very easily by restoring the original integrity of our documents of this Constitution. Now, are there certain things that's changed in the world? You know, I'm sure the Founding Fathers never thought that there would be a day when you could look at a computer screen and talk to somebody face to face and actually be looking at them halfway around the world in real time, just like they were sitting in the same room with you. I'm sure they never had that in their wildest imaginations, because I sure didn't, even in my short lifetime. So there are things, yes, that we adapt to. But the core principles of the protection of the separation of powers, the protection of law and order, the protection of duly fit punishments for crimes, justly and lawfully executed, are bedrock principles of this country. That's the reason why it's the greatest mechanism ever created in the history of the world. I strongly suggest, I haven't mentioned it for a while, every one of you listening to my voice, you need to check out the Center for Constitutional Studies and buy the book, The 5,000-Year Leap. It goes down through history about the progression of man and what happened in the world after the birthing of this country, and man was allowed to reap the rewards of his own labor, and how the whole world has grown wealthy because of it. It's not a matter of Democrat and Republican. It's a matter of right and wrong. It's a matter of corruption and law and order. And if we don't get back to law and order and the binding documents of this country, and if we don't get back to doing it now, we will not have a republic to protect. And all these folks running around out here that have been taught capitalism's bad, socialism is the way to go, they're going to get what they're asking for, and it will be a very short time before they're going, we have made a mistake. All we got to do is look at history and look back, because every government in the world before the United States came into existence was a form of socialism and communism. Check it out. See how well they were doing. History will answer the questions. And I can see I went way long over time. So I'm hoping that I'm making some kind of a difference here. Now I'm going to start heading in a little different direction with some of these podcasts. We're going to keep talking about history. We're going to keep talking about this country. But I think I'm going to start leaning a little heavier on the Word of God and dealing with some of those aspects of the human nature and how that fits into the corruption that we're dealing with in this day and age. So until we meet again on the pod, have a wonderful day.